He was once an intern carrying boxes, and then he became the driving force behind a tech company's global impact. Today, we can discover the keys to building unstoppable product teams and what you may be getting wrong and where you can improve it. Today, we're going to meet Tiago Faria, who was Director of Product at Farfetch, and he's going to be sharing his incredible journey from university dropout and how he became a Director of Product. Get ready to tap into the wealth of experience as Thiago shares his secrets to building effective product teams from a startup of 20 to a global powerhouse of over 8,000 employees. So coming up in today's episode, we're going to be discussing vision, strategy, and adaptability. And frameworks. Are they enabling or are they restricting? And building teams. What's crucial to your success? Now, I'm really excited to explore the insights, Thiago, that you hold around team building, effective strategies, and managing teams. But first, there's one thing we need to know. Could you give a quick overview of your fascinating career journey and where it has led you?
But I did, however, got an internship at Farfetch. And I was an assistant account manager, which was a glorified name for someone that was carrying boxes in the warehouse. However, and I joined when we were only 20 in a startup. There are a lot of opportunities, and so I started doing my own fraud analysis. I started doing my own customer service, and I started interacting a lot with our obviously very small tech team. And when a couple of years later, when we created the product team, it was a natural move for me, and I was the first product manager in Portugal. And I moved into product, and I have been doing my career in product ever since. So we started, it was just me with the entirety of the back office on Farfetch. So we had the back office and we had the front office, which was the website. And then I've progressed inside from product manager to product owner when we adopted Scrum, to lead product manager to, director, and up until I got to director of product that I am now, running a couple of different teams.
Now, with the company's growth, could you share some insights into Farfetch's expansion journey, especially since you joined during the early days in relation to product leadership?
Okay, sure. So when I joined, we were under the radar for a couple of years. So Farfetch started up as a marketplace for luxury fashion. So we would help small boutiques, or maybe not so small boutiques, getting their product online. During the recession in 2009, we basically saved a lot of companies because they had no way of doing it by themselves. And with us, they could have access to the marketplace and they could have access to the online world. And this was the initial concept. And with that concept, and after the first years, we were growing high double digits or triple digits year on year for a lot of years. And it was a very interesting dynamic from joining number 20 in the company up until the company grew to 8,000 people.
Wow, 8,000 people. That's incredible growth to go to from 20. Now, Thiago, could you share your experiences and insights about leading a team that's evolved from really small, tiny to, quite frankly, it's massive?
I'm unusual to the point where I've been for 14 years in the same tech company, but I feel like I've gained so much different experiences because you go from startup to scale up to just to unorganized chaos to organized chaos to formal to enterprise. You live all of that in the same company, and as we did grow in terms of numbers, so did our strategy, both in terms of reach and in terms of complexity, because we started out as a marketplace, but we evolved into a platform. So we have on the world of Farfetch multiple different verticals, so to say, multiple different businesses that can operate almost on its own, and we see ourselves as the engine, the technology engine of the luxury fashion.
Thiago, given your journey, can you dive deeper into the challenges and best practices that you've learned in building highly effective product teams. What thoughts do you have on this?
When building your teams and looking at it from an abstract angle, so the first thing that you need to evaluate is the context. So there's a lot of mistakes that we do in terms of what we think we should have or what we would like to have in our team. And we do that a lot of the times from experience. And again, this is my opinion. I'm not a book writer or anything. And we do that a lot of times from experience. You have something, it worked in the past. We want to do it here. We liked having it. And if we're not careful evaluating the context that we're currently at, we can basically throw resources out of the window. We can frustrate people, and we might be diminishing the potential for value from our teams and from the people of our team. And for me, that's the second part. First part is, what's the context? That will determine effectively what space do you have to operate. The second one is, what team do you have? And what team can you hire? And that will determine how well can you populate that context and how can you expand it. And that's a really important thing, because you need to find the right match between the size of the team and the talent that you have in the team and the value that you have available for you. And then this is when you're still building the team. Recruitment is extremely, extremely important. And then knowing very well the people you have in the team is, well, again, of utmost importance, because you need to be pulling the right strings to make sure that everyone in your team is operating at what's making them grow and what's driving the most value. And then the next challenge is, how do you set up the right level of processes? And this is really important, because you can very easily die by having too much processes or too little processes. So you need the right level. And when I started, we didn't need processes. Basically, I had prioritizations meeting with the CEO and the COO and the CTO in the room, just because it was the scale of the company. It was terrifying because I was very bad at product management, but that was the scale. We didn't need more than that. So it was one meeting every 3 weeks. We would do prioritization meeting, and then engineers, we had like 10, would work on it. And that worked fine for us for a certain amount of time. But then as you scale up, that obviously won't work. and you need to put in different roles. But again, going back to the beginning, it's really important that you do that at the right timing. And this is again, I'm looking back because I didn't know we were doing this when we were doing it, because I didn't have the experience. Looking back, I know, should have done differently there, should have done differently there, should have done differently there. And it's fascinating, but it's important. It's really important to have intentionality on how you're doing this, and asking yourself, do I really need this profile? Does this make sense for the context that I currently have and the challenge that I currently have?
Those are really great insights, Tiago, which leads me to my next topic. Let's talk about prioritization frameworks. How do you approach them, and where do they fit in the hierarchy of importance for product teams and product leaders such as yourself?
I'm not very standard going at it. And why is that? So I'm a really strong believer in the strength of a vision and the strength of the strategy. Really strong believer. I think if you do that right, it just makes your life so much easier. And you do that, again, you need insights to build that, and you need to have a lot of thought put into how do you build your vision, how do you keep it, how do you make it relevant, how can you easily communicate it, and how do you make it in a way that the entire team can easily follow it, understand it, communicate it, and use it. And if you do so, then when you start going one step down, the tool you're using to prioritize is actually, in my opinion, again, and a lot of people would challenge me on that, is not the most important. How do I like to manage my teams? I like to give them freedom. If they like to work with System A, Framework B, I'm okay with that. Prove to me that it works. Prove to me that you can communicate it. Prove to me that it is serving your purpose of negotiating with stakeholders, providing clarity to your stakeholders and to your team members. Prove to me that it's making it easier to do cross-functional and cross-team prioritization, and I'm fine with it. I'm not going to say you should use tool A or tool B, but it has to follow a pattern and a narrative.
I love that. And I completely agree. Now, would you say it's fair to say that being open to reevaluating frameworks rather than sticking to one is a crucial aspect of effective product management?
I entirely agree with you. I couldn't agree more, but it's important to keep reevaluating, because a lot of times, and it goes back to the context, a lot of times, they stop working after a certain amount of time. And what worked for you, especially when you're growing as Farfetch was, and now even the phase we're currently at, where macroeconomics are horrible, so we're all having to adjust to a new world where money is not free. So even now, what used to work no longer does. So maybe now we need more predictability. So maybe having a ultra agile, ultra autonomy, where people have a lot of freedom. Maybe that's not what we need right now. Maybe we can sacrifice a bit of pace for predictability, and that's the right thing to do. And it's like keep reevaluating it.
Indeed, adaptability does seem to be crucial to generate better outcomes from teams. But could you please share your perspective on using a strategy and the execution of that strategy within a dynamic and ever-evolving environment?
So how do I view it? And the first one of the parts I already mentioned, you're helping with team motivation, basically, if you have a strong product strategy. Because ultimately, if you have a team of over 1,000 engineers like we do, they need to look up to something and understand, oh, okay, I'm connecting to the global company strategy in this way. This is really hard to achieve, and I'm not saying we achieve it perfectly. Just saying this is why we do it, and that's one thing, to give people purpose and to give people meaning. It's really important as you're navigating through very complex environments where it's hard for you to understand why you're building something. So having that easy to go to, encompassing and meaningful strategy, and that's an important part, meaningful strategy, really helps. Because if you look at it, how many times have you looked at a strategy and you really don't understand what does that mean? I think it's a lot of the times it happens. So that's one. One important component of strategy is stakeholder alignment. So having a really strong strategy that is aligning to everyone in your structure makes it really easier to communicate with stakeholders. So to give you an example, in our case, we have our global strategy and then we have our vertical strategy, just because we have multiple different areas, right? And the vertical areas, they align to the global strategy. When a vertical area is communicating to their stakeholders, they're using the global strategy. And this just makes it a lot easier to even influence stakeholders that we're moving in the right direction, because they can look at it and see, this is consistent, this makes sense, and it connects to the wider strategy of the company, and it connects to my strategy in this way. And so it makes that whole conversation just so much easier. It can, if well done, it can tremendously reduce noise. So I say to my team, this is not politics. We're making the lives of everyone so much easier if we do our job right, setting up the right strategy. And the other last thing in terms of how you're building roadmaps and how you're prioritizing is that slight nuances on the strategy can really help you foment certain priorities. So if you entirely remove profitability out of your strategy, you're not communicating it every month, every quarter, every semester, and it just slowly weaves out of your mind, and it will slowly weave out of your narrative, and you will not be, because again, this is not, when we're prioritizing, we don't always have, but most of the times we won't have perfect data to prioritize. A lot of it is intuitive and with data combined with gut feeling, combined with experience, and slight nuances on the strategy are actually driving influence across the entirety of roadmaps and ultimately around where you're putting your money in.
Absolutely. Finding that balance, I think, is absolutely key. I have one final question, though, along this train of thought before we wrap up today. Could you provide insights into achieving the optimal balance between using a framework and a well-defined strategy?
I think one really important thing is, and a framework can be used and it will be used a lot of the times. I think it is important that you're clear to yourself of what you want to achieve with everything you're doing. And if you're clear on that, then you might find the framework or the right framework. And if you have that, I think there's more value on being really clear there than picking the right framework. The framework can be A, B, or C. I think that's most of the times you can reach the same results. But if you're not clear on what you're trying to achieve, you won't. Yeah, you will also have so much more work. And I remember when I did this for the first time, that I was stopped for months. Like, I had no idea how to do it. I was like, and again, I was looking for the frameworks, and I was looking online. How do people do strategy? How do they combine this? And how does my boss make it look so easy?
If you enjoyed today's episode, you can connect with Tiago on LinkedIn to tap into more of his product leadership insights. And if you're ready to learn more about improving your product manager and product management career, check out this interview with Agatha from Full Story. It's a game changer and absolutely not to be missed. So, I'd like to thank my friends at Amplitude for helping partnering with me to produce today's episode. And from me, Ross Webb, until next time, bye for now.